My name is Alexis. I am a senior undergraduate student at Harvard University. I study economics and psychology. Yeah, for economics. I see you. I study economics and psychology, and I'm currently the sitting president of the Harvard Lampoon. And so I came to Harvard thinking that I wanted to be an engineer, actually, like my parents. Both my parents were engineers. And then I kind of was like, nah, and I switched to economics, and I kind of threw psych on there very randomly. And but very soon after I got on campus, I Googled Harvard Humor magazine, and this thing that I had never heard of before, Lampoon, came up. And so I don't know, the Harvard Lampoon was something that was definitely on my mind from the beginning, and I applied to be on my freshman fall, was summarily rejected because my jokes were all awful. And I came back, though, in a semester's time, rejuvenated, more than a little bitter. And so I reapplied, and I was accepted then. And so the Lampoon is a 138-year-old humor magazine. Some authors or writers, actors, things who you might know who are from the Lampoon. Conan O'Brien was from the Lampoon when he was on staff. John Updike, George Plimpton, George Santayana, Colin Jost from SNL, BJ Novak. So if you notice, there's like a pattern of the people I'm saying. These are white people. These are a lot of white people, like a veritable caucasity of white dudes. And so despite that, I applied anyways. And once I got on staff, though, because of this sort of long legacy of the place, I was really, really worried about a lot of things. Mostly just being from sort of a non-glamorous background, being from Wisconsin, which is where I was born and where yeah, okay, this is weird. People love economics in Wisconsin. I'm about it. All right, you weirdos. So I was just very worried, surrounded by people who had been to prep school and had parents in the entertainment industry and things that I just was not at all qualified to be on staff. And then when I became sort of senior enough that I could possibly run for president, I was really worried about that. I was worried about being a leader. I was just, in general, worry is like my normal state of mind at any given point, but this specifically was something that caused me no end to anxiety. But the funny thing was that in the midst of all that worrying, victory. I won, and thank you. It was hard fought. There was a lot of bloodshed, but I'm pretty big, so I succeeded. It kind of became sort of a media thing when it happened. I was elected in December, and sort of around February, the media got hold of it, and it kind of became a deal because I am Black, obviously, and also a girl. So surprise, in case you weren't aware. And so those two things are kind of like, ooh. And so the media kind of, in February, when SNL was really being criticized about having no Black women writers or no Black women players, it was also Black History Month. It was just a Black girl comedy, like perfect storm. And I just happened to be standing there at the time. And so I was pulled in a lot of really important conversations about sort of gender, race, comedy, what does it all mean? What do you think? And all these things. And not that they were topics I had never thought about. Obviously, I thought about them a lot, but I did never expect to be in a position where I would be expected to voice them to people. And mostly that because, like, really, the reason I wanted to be on the Lampoon was not to become, an expert on race, gender, comedy things, or even because I wanted to be a writer. At the time, I thought I was going to be Ben Bernanke or something. I don't know what I was thinking. I was going to be an economist or something. And so I really just wanted to be on Lampoon because I love telling jokes. I love making people laugh. I love telling stories. And I think the reason sort of Lampoon has created a culture of producing people like Conan O'Brien, people who go on to create and write for The Simpsons and Futurama and Parks and Recreation and a lot of my favorite shows, is because it's one of the few places where you're giving just so many resources and told to just run with it. The only rule of Lampoon is there are no rules, and my aunt knows that very well based on stories I've told her. And so it's a sort of environment where you really can just figure out what comedy even means to you, what writing means to you, and I think the Lampoon has given me a real opportunity to sort of develop what I think comedy is. So yeah, I guess if I was going to call whatever it is that I'm doing right now something, I would call it comedic incongruity, because I think comedy essentially at the end of the day is about the incongruous. So basically when things don't match up, when expectations and reality miss each other. So the same reason you laugh at Louis C.K. talking about how much he hates his kids, because it's like, oh, you had your kids, you made those, you should love those, that's weird. And also the same reason you laugh at people, slipping on a banana peel and falling and potentially dangerously injuring themselves. It's because, humans, you have 2 legs, you should be on those. That's silly, get up, like what's wrong with you? And so it's the breakdown of our expectations, and I think that's all that, that's what satire is, that's what sarcasm is, that's what irony is, that's what penis jokes are. It's all just incongruous things. So you're laughing because I said the word penis. Unexpected, right? Ooh. Sorry, kids, are there kids here? Oh, goodness gracious. Sorry, I mean like HE double hockey sticks or whatever. What's the PC word for penis? Anyways, I need to stop saying it. Let's see, I've done lost my place now. Distracted. But on a deeper level, more than just the sort of incongruous of comedy, there is also I think that as someone who studies psychology a lot, it's the part of your brain that recognizes that life is both very ordered and essentially random. So like, yes, I have the expectations that I should be on 2 legs, but through no fault of my own, I could fall down. And maybe tomorrow I'll get hit by a bus. Oh, well, that's just it. And it's kind of sad, and it's kind of scary, but somehow our brain has figured out that like our immediate reaction to that is pleasure. And that's crazy, and if you actually think about it. And I think it's one of the key like survival techniques of the human race, that we can do that. We can laugh at how absurd and fragile and messed up our like very tiny, essentially meaningless existences are. It got really dark right there for a second, but I hope you get what I'm saying. And so that's kind of why comedy is so important to me, and why I take it so seriously. So back to sort of the important conversation that I'm now kind of a part of, about gender and race and media representation and sort of all those things. And also, more importantly, just kind of all the things that are happening in television and in film. And I think despite the very big successes of shows like Scandal and Orange is the New Black and Grey's Anatomy, you notice those are all dramas also, not comedies. So I still think we have a huge comedy problem when it comes to diversity. But overall, the industry is still so far behind reflecting what actually happens and what like our real world, even this room, looks like right now. So just like some rundown of some selected facts. The Hollywood Reporter recently published a list of 50 power showrunners, so the people who are like behind great shows, and it actually included 58 men and only 14 women, less than 20%, and none of those were comedy showrunners. Less than 15% of all animated characters in film last year were voiced by someone non-white. Less than 5% of speaking characters in film were Latinos, even though they represent 25% of the population. And over 51% of films last year had not one, non-white character. Like, what is that about? Like, that's a caucasity and a disaster, and I'm not here for it, pretty much. So basically, I think I've been asked this question a lot, and people sort of think that diversity is about being PC, or like throwing a bone to people that you have historically excluded, or whatever, just like a nice thing that you can do. But it's not about that at all. I think that it's about perspectives, and that there are studies that are going to that show now that when you have a more diverse cast, like audiences want to see that. They want to see the world that looks like their world. And the more voices you have in the room, the more unique perspectives you have in the room, like any art, the better it's going to be. And the more you're going to be able to create a product, create a show that people who come from all sorts of walks of life, like you and Mr. Direct Eye Contact Man and this other guy over there, you're all going to be able to relate to the show because so many different people have brought their perspectives to it. So it just makes sense, and it makes for a better overall product. So basically then the question becomes, like, what do we do? How the HE double hockey sticks do we get there? And I'll be the first to say that I don't know. I don't know. I'm 22, okay? So I haven't figured out most things. I just figured out that there is an actual physical difference between your left and right shoe, so you can't just wear either and like walk around all day because it really hurts. And so yeah, I'm not an expert on most things. But I do think that the signs are really, really encouraging, and the more people that have this conversation and realize this is something that's important, the more that audiences are going to be able to enjoy the products that come out of that. And I don't know, I feel like I have no reason to be anything but optimistic. Obviously, that's a little self-serving, more than a little self-serving. But a girl's got a dream. That's pretty much all I have. Thank you so much. I hope, Mr. Direct Eye Contact Man, you enjoyed this. I appreciate you looking away. You haven't looked at me in a while. So I hope that means that this was good and not bad. So thank you so much.